Hi, so I'm here today with Charlie Liang from Big Panda, and we're going to be talking about ABM's success path. Thanks for joining us today, Charlie. How you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing really well.
Absolutely, we're glad to have you. So let's just jump right into it. Account-based marketing is becoming an increasingly important topic for a lot of our organizations that we work with to think about. And historically, I know it's been something that really mid-market companies and kind of the enterprise focus on. Are those the only companies who should consider an ABM strategy, or is it for organizations of all sizes?
I think ABM, so taking a step back, ABM is really about using your resources to the best of your ability, right? So when you're thinking about, conversion rates, ABM is all about upping that conversion rate. So if you have limited resources, you can only do that much personalization, and ABM is all about personalization. So I think mid-market, enterprise, it's all governed by resources, but the resources kind of dictate how big that target account list is and how much effort you can spend on each account. So I would say, regardless of company size, there's a little bit, you should be doing at least a little bit of ABM.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. Good answer. In terms of who should be involved with an ABM strategy, I know it's a little bit different where we kind of think about like the marketing roles oftentimes being siloed in organizations and then the sales folks doing their own thing. This requires more of kind of a bridging that gap where marketing's actually thinking about accounts, sales jointly has to be brought into that, operations needs to be brought in. Can you just talk a little bit about how you bring those roles together?
Yeah, it's a great point. So traditionally, ABM has been kind of more of a sales approach. It's all about one-to-one, but with the advent of all this marketing technology and just marketing folks getting more savvy in general, you're able to do one-to-one at scale, and that's really involving the entire kind of organization, right? So marketing and sales obviously have to be aligned. Marketing, has to bring in the right people at the right accounts that sales wants to close, and then that process has to flow seamlessly through inside sales and outside sales for that whole funnel to work. So I think everybody is involved, from the operations person to the content person to the event marketing person to the corporate marketing people. Everybody has to be bought into the strategy for it to work optimally.
Yeah, and so we're hearing a lot of success stories where companies really over the last year or two have implemented this approach and seen much higher conversion rates, much more effective use of marketing dollars. But it's still new for a lot of organizations. So as these companies think about getting started, what are some of the top things that they should consider?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think the data is really important. ABM is all about using the data that you know about a company, and that involves doing a lot of research. Whether it's you outsource that research, you need to know what the pain, the compatibility, and the time frame of a company. BANT is out the door. So it's all about PCT. So you want to understand what percentage of target accounts you want to target. So the data is very important. The framework, aka the buy-in with sales and like how everything is going to flow. The campaigns you do has to make sense, and they have to kind of be cohesive. So there's a lot of thought process and planning that goes into that. So the data, the planning, and then the tools and the infrastructure to support all those efforts.
Awesome. So you gave a great talk today on ABM success paths, and when we think about you specifically mentioned a segmentation framework, which is really important for an account-based marketing strategy. So can you talk about how you use the segmentation framework to target specific accounts?
Yeah, so there's three different approaches for ABM. There's the classic, which is every sales rep picks a few dozen accounts, and then there's the mid kind of ABM light, as John Miller likes to call it. It's a couple of hundred accounts per sales rep, and then you have your demand gen ABM hybrid. So depending on what approach you want to take, the segmentation I think is best for the demand gen hybrid and more accounts, because now you're not doing one-to-one, but you're using like what technologies they're using, you're using their location, you're using their industry, you're using their title, all on an automated basis, but then the end user still receives a very kind of curated experience, whether it's ads, whether it's emails, whether it's trade show presence. So you're really using that data it's to the best of your advantage, and using that to kind of create a clever hook for that person to engage.
Awesome. So what are some of the success metrics that we should think about when we're implementing an ABM strategy? And then I would ask specifically, how do we make sure that we get marketing and sales aligned with those metrics?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you're starting out in ABM, it's kind of a guess and check approach. You're not going to dedicate 100% of your resources to ABM, otherwise your awareness kind of goes out the door, right? You know, a lot of companies don't do that. But so what I like to suggest is you start out by doing 50-50, right? You get bought in from sales. So I'm going to say marketing is going to spend 50% of its efforts on account-based marketing. The other 50% is going to be traditional demand gen kind of awareness, right? And then once you understand that kind of mix, then you can say, okay, well, if I spent 50% of my time, then I'm going to be, comped on 50% of the traditional metrics, but then the ABM metrics are a little bit different. You're looking for that, list and kind of what penetration you can get under those accounts. So, the meeting set, the opportunities created with the target accounts, the average deal size, the average sales cycle, and the productivity per rep. These are the metrics you want to be looking at for ABM.
Awesome. And so I think you hit on a really interesting point, which is you really actually need to make sure that the comp model is aligned to the outcomes that you want to drive. You can't just say, we're going to run this new strategy, but we're going to keep your compensation status quo, right?
Exactly.
So that's a great thing to consider.
Sales is coin-driven, marketing is coin-driven. At the end of the day, the plan has to align with the strategy.
Absolutely. And so I would also say then that probably means that really for this to be effective, you have to get buy-in at the top. So leadership has to be bought in if we're going to kind of change our models specifically around compensation and what people are incentivized on.
Right. And traditionally it's not that hard to sell sales. They might get a little bit nervous because you're narrowing the aperture, but if you can justify the higher conversion rates and get more pipeline, ultimately that's what they care about is pipeline and revenue.
Awesome. So you also hit today in your talk on examples of ready-to-go ABM campaigns. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I talked about a campaign where so going back to the PCT, we really wanted
to... Can you say PCT?
So PCT is pain, compatibility, and time frame of accounts. I think the traditional band worked when you're looking at a person, but when you're looking at an account, you're really looking at the PCT of accounts. So to understand PCT, we did a bunch of research, and we did it in the form of a survey, and we gamified it. And I think people are a little bit more willing to open up about what they're thinking about when it's in the form of a survey, and especially when they get the results back, and especially when you give out big, gift cards for incentivization. So we actually did a survey. We got about almost 1,800 responses. It's a 30-question survey. It took about 10 minutes. We got a lot of data about the accounts that we cared about, and ranging from what tools they're using, how many people on their team, what their pain points were, everything that filled in the PCT. So once we did that survey, now we analyzed that data and used it both as a demand generation source. So we did a webinar and a report and a infographic around the results, and we captured a lot of leads that way. But the ABM piece of it is we took all this survey data from the accounts that we cared about in the target account list, and then we found the right people at those accounts, and we sent them a very targeted kind of hook. So we basically said, hey, so-and-so at Cisco, I'm just using an example, so-and-so at Cisco, you have an alert pain point. If you give us 15 minutes of your time, and do a demo and a trial of us, we'll send you this drone, right? And then people eat that up like hotcakes, right? So we got a lot of responses from that. We got over 61 opportunities created from that campaign.
Awesome, that's really cool. And so I know we're hitting on a lot of really important things that kind of require some thought and depth, but what are the key takeaways that you would leave for partners thinking about implementing a successful ABM strategy? What are kind of the top 3 things?
Yeah, the top 3 things are definitely alignment with sales, making sure everyone is bought in, doing your due diligence in terms of research and data. Your ABM campaign is going to fall flat on its face if you don't know enough about your customers and your prospects. And then also, having the right tool sets to enable that ABM campaign, and tool sets meaning resources and infrastructure to support that.
Awesome. Well, those are great takeaways. So I want to thank Charlie for his time on helping you guys think about how you implement a successful ABM strategy. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.